Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is part 19C of our Let's Get Cooking series, and this is part C because we're now creating our order system, which is a computerized screen, and we're going to use that to run all of our ordering system. Whereas before we were using the pin the menu, look recipe, pin your recipe, make the recipe, and do the order that way. We're moving away from that, and we're making it into a more complete system, so that you are following what the game is telling you to do rather than just choosing what you want to do, and really it gets boring that way. So you've got like challenges. It will generate a random amount of orders in a day, and you've got to get through those orders in a day. Later on, we could actually put a time constraint on it, so like a time period of a day, and if you don't manage to do all those orders in a day, then that's fine. If you do, then you can just close your day or whatever. So the last two episodes included making up the monitor, which is here, and setting the UI up. Last time we did all the coding for our UI elements and our last two UI elements. Now we've got to find a way of managing everything that happens on that UI. And where a better place to do it is in our kitchen manager. So we're going to go to our blueprints folder, our core imports. I'm going to open up our VP kitchen manager. And obviously the kitchen manager is persistent in the level, and we can, with our handy dandy, get kitchen manager call here, which we did in C++ quite early on in the series. We can actually access that from anywhere. And while I was just between videos, just had a thought just to remind you, if your game is on more than one level, you would have to save all of the relevant data in your kitchen manager, so that when you start your new level, you spawn it in and reload all that data to keep everything up to date. But most cooking type games tend to just be on one level, so you shouldn't have a problem with that, unless you intend to go out and do driving around different parts and do a delivery yourself in a car. Then maybe you would have to do it that way. The way I've set this up is just to be a one level, build kitchen, where you can expand your kitchen. Maybe later on we might introduce NPCs, I don't know. But that's the way that it's being set up at the moment. So without further ado, let's get on with it. We've got quite a lot of work to do on the coding side today, so it's going to be code heavy today. It's going to be quite long, I imagine. So again, you can always pause it and take a break and have a coffee and go back and do some more as and when you find you need to. So without further ado, let's get cracking. I'm going to bring up my reference project. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a load of variables up. So the last variable we added was our drinks machine variable. That's from when we made a coffee machine. So we're going to add a few more. Y minus alpha. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is add a variable, and we're going to call it monitor widget. And that's going to be our monitor widget. WBT main monitor. Okay, that's our first one. And next one is going to be called active order number. You may recognize that name from the last video. I tried to keep the name so that when we join them up, it makes a little bit of sense. Next one is going to be called generated orders, and this is of type S underscore orders struct, and it is going to be an array. Remember, if you right click on there, you will get an array. The next one is going to be active order, and that's going to be order struct, but it's going to be single, so right click and change it to single. Next one is going to be current recipe 1e index, and that's going to be an integer. Next one is going to be called order blocks, and that's going to be our order WDT order block, and that's going to be an array. That's an array of widget references, and we have two more variables to add, so let's go and add them. And the first one is called number of orders completed. Again, name them to what makes sense to you, but I'll try to keep the naming that makes sense. So it's a single integer, and our final variable that we're going to make in our variables list is orders total, which is also an integer. Okay, so we've done that. So let's make a few functions. I'm just looking to make sure that where they come from. So it's probably best to start filling out where we can our interfaces and our order section. So let's start with the functions, okay, which are these bluey color ones. Get active order. And okay, this is, yep, we can do this one. This is a reasonably big one, or medium-sized one, so let's give ourselves some room. We're going to drag in our generated orders to for each loop with a break, not proper, for each loop with a break. So here, down here somewhere. We're going to break this struct, and we are only interested in our order number. So we're going to say, is our order number equal to the active order number? Oops, up here. We can hide the rest of these. We don't need them now. And we're going to do a branch on there off of the loop body. We only care about what happens if it's true. We're going to drag in, oh, sorry, we're not going to drag in. We are going to get this, we're going to promote this to a local variable. I'm going to call it L order. And we're going to put that on true. Okay. But there's probably a better way of doing this one, actually, a simpler way of doing it. No, not really, because of the order number is not an index. So if this is true, we can go back to here. But sometimes whilst I'm redoing this again for the video, I sometimes look at it and go, maybe there's a better way of doing it, and change it a little bit. So projects morph as we write them, as we look at them, as we add to them. We can morph and change our code and go, well, actually, I can think there's a better way of doing it. Maybe you think, oh, you've overcomplicated it, which is often the case. We often overcomplicate our code. We then join on the completed because we've broken this, so we found an order number in our generated orders that matches that, and we said that is our active order. So our active order number and our active order, our local order is put into there. Okay, so that's that one done. I'm going to go ahead and just close a lot of these off because it's getting confusing. Sometimes you get so many. I'm going to drag my event graph to there, and I'm going to say close all tabs to the right, just to keep it a bit cleaner. Get too many tabs, it gets so confusing sometimes. So we've done our get active order, and the next one we're going to do is, oh, that's a complicated one. Let's maybe, we've got to do them all anyway. Okay, just want to see which ones that do not depend on functions that we haven't made. I think this one will be okay to do next. So yes, we're going to do the check items. It is a little bit. This one we have bear with me. I think I've made a mistake on the interface there, so let's just double check that. Can't find it for looking. Yes, we have. Okay, so the pinned on here, we made a mistake. Should have an output, and we're going to call it can pin. Can pin. Okay, so we need a return node on it. That's what I was looking at. That's why it was a bit concerning. We can delete that. We don't need that. Now we can open that up. This is quite a big function, so we're going to move that up there for now. And we're going to do we actually already have that? We do already have that, actually. We just changed it. Bear with me a minute, I'm just going to find. Check available ingredients. Did we have that or not? I'm sure we had that. event bar. Is it in our UI? I thought we had that when we did the thing. Bear with me, something doesn't quite look great here. I'm going to have a quick investigation and I'll get back to you. Okay, no, my mistake. It is a new function that we haven't used before. We did it a different way before, so we are going to be changing that as we go along. So let's just make sure we don't have to rename some of these these instruction script, make stage from recipe and get next stage. Instruction script, make stage from recipe, get next stage. Okay, we've got 2 more new ones on there. And we will have quite a lot from that. Now, all this category we need to make. So, okay. So let's make that first because we're going to need that. So we're going to make a function. And we are going to call it check availability. It's getting late here. Available ingredients. Give me a moment, I'll get in the flow very shortly. And that has an output. And called CanPen. And we're going to split that. Okay, this one is a little bit lengthy, but nothing too complicated. So first thing we want to do is find our current recipe. We're going to convert that to a validated get. We've got no recipe, there's no point pinning anything because we don't know what we need. From the recipe, we're going to get appliance type used. Remember we added this with the coffee machine and we're going to do a switch. No, not a sequence. Going to do a switch on this. It's valid. We did something similar. This is why it's confusing me in the ingredients. So that's why I got a little bit sidetracked there. So first of all, we're going to add a chef's comment just to tell the player what to do or what is the problem. So they're not clicking on the key going, oh, the game's broken. The game's not broken. You've done something that you shouldn't have done, or you've not done something. So we're going to just put no order selected. So that is that. And is that a local variable? Yeah. And we're going to make so we can promote this to a local variable and call it CanPen recipe. And we're going to set that local variable to no. We can move that down out of the way for a minute. Okay, so off of here, we're going to get our prep table and our current recipe. And we're going to, from a prep table, we're going to say set ingredient list message. And we're going to do our recipe here. And we're going to copy and paste that for the drinks machine, and we're going to add our drinks machine as a target and our current recipe. Give us a little bit of space down here. Then we're going to get our prep table. So I'm sure we did it before, but I may have changed it so we can't necessarily find it. I thought we did. I'm just going to find the references all for a minute. Okay, yeah, we've called it from in here. That's why I'm getting confused. Oh, we've called it in start new recipe here. That's why. So we're going to change that later. Okay. This is why it's confused me. So basically, you could, if you wanted to, save yourself a little bit of time. You can pretty well copy that whole lot, but let's just do it properly. So we're going to do check for existing ingredients message on the prep table, and we're going to, in the prep table, we're going to say refresh UI message. Put a reload node in here, and we're going to get our local variable and set it to the end here. So basically, if it's valid, we've got one of these, we are going to be able to pin the recipe. And this one we need only to refresh UI. So we can copy and paste that. And the recipe, connect that to there. And copy and paste that to here. I'm going to drag them all out evenly. So we're going to connect all three of these together to the return node. You could do separate return nodes if you so wanted to. It works just as well like that. So this is that. We're going to replace our other function later, but let's make the functions up first. Okay, so we've done that. And the reason we did that one first was for our get pinned. No. Yeah. Pin check ingredients here. And we're going to use this here. Connect that to there. Okay, just makes it more of a global call. Makes it a little bit easier to maintain. Okay, good. So the next one we're going to do is, okay, so we should do the next one is going to be a new function. And let's see whether it's got any functions inside that. Yes, it does. So we need to make those functions first, or that function first. So we're going to make a function, and we're going to call it create order. We're going to put this in a category of orders so that we can not get confused, not orders, order. And this one has quite a lot of code in it. Okay, so first of all, we need to know how many or what recipes we have available to us in our system. Now remember, the way I've set this up is so that we can add to it without having to recode. So if we wanted to add another 10 recipes, we can just go ahead and add them in as data assets. We don't have to recode a heck load of code just to get them to work. I've tried to make it as flexible as possible. This is why we have made our own functions in some of the things in C++. So we're going to use one of those now. We're going to say get all data assets of class. Class is going to be DA underscore recipes, which gives us a resulting resulting array. So we're going to for each loop through that, like so. And we're going to promote this to a local variable. I'm going to call it LDA recipes. Something like that. And we're going to go ahead and delete that. The reason we're going to delete that is because we're going to change it to an array. And get that array. And we can't just add it because this should be an array of DA recipes, not objects. Okay. Change variable type is fine. It should be an array of DA recipes, and we could. So if we're going to go add unique here, it's not going to let us do it. Okay. So we get over that by we cast to DA underscore recipe. We can right click and pure cast because we know it's going to be a DA recipe because that's what we've filtered here. So we know that should always pass, and we're going to add them to that. The reason this gives an object and not a specific thing is because our data assets could be of different classes, and we can use this again to be more flexible. I know everybody says you shouldn't cast, but there are some instances where casting is perfectly okay as long as you're not doing it on tick. If you're running this on tick, this is expensive, and then this would be expensive, so it would be not recommended to do on tick. But if you do it on once every so often call, it is not going to be expensive at all. Okay, so now we've done that. So basically what we're doing here, we're getting all our assets, we're casting to them, so we're making a local array of those assets. So we know now we have an add unique so that we don't double up, which we shouldn't be able to anyway, but we're using add unique just to be sure. So we now know what recipes we have available to us to choose from. And basically from that, we're going to create an order within that, an order of recipes. So from completed, we can get now be careful with this one, a for loop, not a for each loop, just a for loop. Okay, a little bit different. That's the same thing as a for each loop, except for we set our indexes and it just runs it that many times. So if you wanted, common use for something like this is a spawn. You could say I want to spawn it between here and here, and then you can spawn an item or do whatever you like from there multiple times. So we're going to, the first index is going to be 0. last index, we're going to do random spell correctly, you'll find it, random integer in range. Okay, and just double checking my code here a minute. Why is that? Okay, so it's getting a, yeah, because, sorry, okay, so we're doing this random to 2. So basically, this will give us up to 3 different items in an order. If you want your orders to be very long, you can make this longer, but it will just randomly select whatever we want. Remember, 0 counts as 1 item, so 0 is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that's why I've done it like that. That's why I'm just checking my code as we're going along here. Okay, so now we're going to get our LDA recipes here. We're going to get last index. So in other words, what's the final index? We can copy and paste that, another random integer. The last index goes here. And again, so we're basically using this to choose a index from here. We're going to get here, so obviously it's going to be from 0 because the first index is 0, and obviously the last index is whatever our last index is. So again, this makes it flexible. We don't have to know how many recipes we've got. We don't have to go back here and go, oh no, we've got 150 recipes. Okay, you know, it can get a little bit out of hand. So this does it all automatically for us. Get a copy. We're going to put that into there. Okay, let's give it down a little bit because we've got to come off the top of the loop body here. So let's move these down to max. And we are going to make another local variable. There's quite a few local variables in here actually. We're going to add a new local variable. We're going to call it lmap. And it is a map and it's of recipes and integers. So make sure you've got your DA recipes and integers of a map. We're going to drag in our local map. And we're going to say add. We're going to add that recipe to it. And this one here is going to be how many of that recipe. So in other words, if somebody comes into a restaurant, they don't always just order one. They might be ordered especially a takeaway like we're doing here. They might be takeaway for an office, so they might want 3 white coffees, 10 black coffees, 2 pieces of toast, whatever. So there's going to be multiples of it. So we're going to get an integer in range. Now, up to you how many you set. Obviously, the higher you set this, the harder it is. This is something you could possibly use as a level up. So as you maybe get NPCs or make a multiplayer, you can cope with more, you can make more. I found just for one person and just for testing, obviously you want a minimum of 1 because you can't order nothing. And I found like a maximum of 3, whereas it gets a bit long in the tooth if you've got 20 orders in a day or something. But this, again, up to you. Okay. So basically what this is doing, let me try and explain this again. We're getting all of our data assets, we're going through them, we're adding them to an array. Making sure we're casting them into the correct item. When it's completed, we're running a for loop with up to 3 steps, so it does 3 lines in the recipe. Each line, it's choosing a random integer between the first and the last index of all of the recipes we have in our restaurant. We're getting that resultant integer. We're getting that recipe from the array that we made. We're adding it to a map of recipes, and we're adding a quantity of that item. So like I say, 1 or 2 or 3 coffees. Up to you what you put for your max here. Up to you what you put for your max here as well. I put 2, which can give us up to 3 lines, but if you want more, again, up to you. So once we've done that, we come off of this completed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these just a little bit to the right so that we're not crossing too many wires. So we're going to drag in our map again, and we're going to do a for each. And we're going to connect that to the completed of here. So now we're going to go through our map. We're going to work out the price. Now, I don't know whether we've got that in our DA recipe. So let's just open that up and make sure we have it or not. So we go to our data assets, find our DA recipe. We want the blue one, not the data asset itself. And we did make it, give price. We've already made that, so that's good and dandy. So back to here. And we are going to come out here and say give price. That gets our price. Okay. Going to promote that to a local variable. We're going to call it L price. Okay, we're just going to break the input for a minute because we need to do some math. So we're going to get the price. We're going to multiply that by the value. So obviously, how many items. We're going to get our local price. And we're going to add what is already in there. Remember, this is the order total, not the it's complete order total, so there could be more than one item. And we're going to put that into our local price. Okay. Once we have done that, we need to have, there's no inputs, no, but we do need some outputs. We're going to add 2 outputs. Let's connect this up before we do it. Actually, let's do it the easy way. We'll make ourselves a return node. When completed on here, we're going to get our local map and we're going to get our local price. Just drag them on here. And we can change the names of them. So we're just going to call it results. And we're going to call it order price. Let's open again. Order price, like so. Okay, so that's it for that function. I hope I've tried to explain that as best I can. And that brings us to making the next function, which is a new function up here. I'm going to call this generate random orders. Then we'll put that into our orders category. No inputs. And there are no outputs. But it is quite a big piece of code. So first of all, we need to clear some variables just so that we're not got any data from the last set of orders. So we're going to find our active order number. We're going to set that to 0. Remember, our order numbers start from 1. Number of orders completed, we're also going to set to 0 because we're starting fresh, so we've got none of those. We're going to get our order blocks. We're going to clear that. We don't want anything remaining from previous data. The only way this would clear if we didn't do this would be if we restarted the game and we hadn't made a save system. We're going to get our generated orders. We're going to clear that also. So basically making sure all of our data is clear and clean, ready to make new. And we're also going to get our monitor widget. We're going to get our orders box. We're going to clear that as well. So we're going to clear the children from that. So basically, we've cleared our UI, we've cleared all of our variables, ready to make new ones. Okay, so we're going to get a random integer in array that we've used before. Okay, so I'm going to put a little comment on here that you don't see me do very often, but I'm going to put set min 1 to max 2 for testing. Testing. Okay, and the reason I put that is just a little note to yourself. Okay, but I'm going to set it for that. But basically, you definitely want a minimum. So what this is going to do is say, okay, how many orders can we have in a day? So if you want to make your game difficult, your max will be a lot higher and your minimum will be higher. If you want to make your game easier, then you make these lower so there's less orders. For testing, you want 1 or 2 because you don't want to have to for testing for the end of day stuff. You probably, so for now we're just going to, so what I found was quite good amount was 4 and 16, something like that. Okay. But we're going to set it as I've instructed there, 1 and 2 for doing our testing. Okay, so then we're going to get our generated orders and we're going to resize this array to the result of this. So we're saying, okay, this array is going to be this big. Okay. Now, so what that basically does, it sets an array of empty slots to that new size. So as you see now, it says 0. So in this case, it's going to be between 1 and 2, or 4, 6, or whatever this produces is going to make list of those. So for example, I'll just show to you. So if this says 2, I compile it. This would be 2, but we haven't. It doesn't do it in editor. It only does it when it's running. So now that we have the amount of windows there, we get a fresh copy of it. We don't use the same one. If we use the same one here, this wouldn't have had effect. So we need to click a fresh copy. We're going to for each loop. So for each loop through the amount of slots it's made. We're going to promote this to a local value, and we're going to call it L-index. And we can join that to there. Now we've just made that create order. So we're going to run that like so. We're going to come off of here and we're going to do an add 1. Okay, because remember, arrays start at 0, but we want our order numbers to start at 1, which we'll be setting in a moment. Then we're going to get our generated orders again. We're going to get, and make sure you choose get a reference, not get a copy. We're going to use our local index, which we've set here. And we are going to, from here, we're going to set members in the struct. We'll be doing it up to here. The members, we're going to set our order. Just a little bit. Order total and order number. Okay, these 3. Order goes to there. Order total goes to there. And here, our order number is here, which we generated from our array. So this array 0 will become order number 1, so on and so forth. So we've generated our order. So now what we've done is we filled this up with the random orders we created from this function. So that will make 1 order. And the next part, can't remember why I did it, but we'll go through it. I will explain this, excuse me, as we're going through it. So we're going to generate orders again for each loop again. And again, this is not being run more than once or twice, once every so often. So it doesn't matter how many times you for each loop. Okay, so we're going to promote this variable to promote to a local variable. We can call this L order. And we're going to set that. Remember what we're doing. Okay, so we just done this to actually populate part of the structure. So I was getting a bit confused with what it is. So from here, we break this struct, open that up, we promote this to a local variable, and we call it L orders completed. And also we need to make another one here, so we're going to call this L array index. Giving me promote a local variable, then rename it. Array index, we're going to set that. And we're going to set that. Like that. We're going to get the map here. Rewrite the map. We're going to for each loop through the map. Like so. We can go ahead and hide the unconnected on those. And now where do we go from here? From the map. I remember this took me a little bit of working out. This is why I'm just trying to think about what I'm doing. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to populate this inside of the struct. So it's always not always easy trying to do that. So from our loop body, we're going to do another for loop, not a for each. Make sure it's just a for loop. First index is going to be 1 because we're using off the order number, which is a map value here. And the last index is going to be the map value. Okay. So basically it says how many items do we have in there. If we've got one item, it adds it, because in a map we cannot duplicate the same item. So basically the reason for that is saying that we're checking that each item in the order has been completed, which is what that is all about. So for example, if we've got 3 white coffees or 3 black coffees, so you couldn't, if you used a map, it would just be black coffees, quantity 3. It would make it more difficult to say whether that's completed or not, especially when we come to needing an item to put in the bag. It's better to have it this way. Okay. Just explain that because I remember when I now remember while I'm doing this now how much of a pain it was to actually get to work. So last L orders completed that we just made. We're going to get the last index from that. And what are we going to do with that? We're going to add 1 to that. That will give us an order number. And we're going to -1. Oh, sorry, we're going to check if it equal to -1. So in other words, if there's nothing in it, we're going to populate it. Okay, we're going to change the number that we're populating it. So we're going to do a branch from here. Branch which goes to this loop body. So this is difficult to do, so it's quite difficult to explain, but I will try. So we're going to get our index L. We're going to set it 2 times here. Not the array index, index L. On the false one, we're going to set it to here. On the true one, we're going to set it to 0. So it gives us a 0 index. So basically, if this is -1, so if this is empty, so in other words, it's the first slot, then that will show up as a -1, okay? Because it's not valid. And so if it's not valid, we're going to give it an index of 0, so that when we set our element, we need an index. And if it is greater than that, so it's 0 or above. We're going to add 1 to give us the next index. Then we're going to get this, and we're going to say set array element. We're going to plug both of these into here, like so. And we get our index L is now going to be here. So set here. And the item, we're going to get our map key here. Ooh. Add some reroute nodes, drag this over to here. Reroute node. Okay. Then we're going to say make S order progress. Completed, we're going to leave blank, and we're going to give it a recipe. I hope that sort of makes sense. It's difficult to explain. I will quickly run through it when we finish the function. So off of the completed off of here, we're going to, first of all, we're going to get our L order. We're going to say set members. And it's going to be our order items completed. It's going to be the L orders completed. And that is off of this one, which is a for loop, not the for each loop map. And again, I've had issues with just trying to directly set it, so I prefer to set it properly. So now we need to drag in our generated orders. And we're going to get our L array index. It's the other way around. No, the right first time. We're going to say set array element at this index at this item. That index is set here. Okay. That goes through and does that. So when that's completed, then we've not yet finished, I'm afraid, my friends. So then we need to generate and set the items in the order block. Okay. So after make sure I get the right one. Yes. This one here, the generated orders here, this completed. We're going to do yet another for each loop off of our generated orders. We've updated it, so we've got new information in there now, which is all fresh to us. We're going to get the array index, and we're going to add 1 to that. And we are going to create a widget. The widget we're going to create is our order block. You see it gives us order struct and order number. So remember, this starts at 0. We want our order number to start to 1, which is why we're adding 1. That gives us our order number. The order struct is going to be this one here. Okay. Then we get our monitor widget here. We get our orders box. And we add child Add child to wrap box is the one we want. Make sure you get the correct one. And that's why I was just pausing because I didn't quite see it in the list there. So add child to wrap box. We run out of space here. Let me drop this lot down a little bit. This is probably one of the most complex functions we have in this section. So once we've done that, we get our order blocks. We add to the array of order blocks, and we're going to be adding this one. A couple of rewrote nodes, and away we go. And finally, we get our order blocks. We get the length. Zoom in, we get the length from our order blocks. We get our orders total. We set that length. This is our final order, because these are the blocks that we've actually displaying on our screen. And it gives us an order total. And we then get our monitor variable. And we say update orders completed. Even though we haven't completed anything, we still want to update the information. Total orders we can get from here. Orders completed is a number of orders completed, which we have set back to 0. And our active order number is set to 0. Okay, that's it for this function. Let me try and very quickly run through this again to help you understand if possible. Okay, so what this function does is when we start the day, or when we run it, we start the day, or when the game starts, this will be run. And so basically we're going to be generating our restaurant orders for that day. So first of all, we're doing a little bit of housekeeping, cleaning up, making sure everything is set back to 0 or empty. What these are doing here, our order numbers and our two arrays. We're making sure there's no spurious blocks in the in here, okay, because you may well have been adding them in for testing, which we may well have to do later ourselves anyway. So we're clearing those. We're setting a random size for our amount of orders. So how many orders can we generate in a day? So for testing, I'm doing between 1 and 2, so that will give us actually maximum 3. Now we've resized it, we've got some slots, we're going through each one of them, we're creating an order, which I explained when we did this one, for each one. We're going through it again, and we're creating a list of orders completely, so itemized things within that order, because this will just give us a, like I say, in the order line, it would say coffee times 3, or bread and butter times 2, or a large black coffee times 1. So this will actually separate all those out into separate items into this order items completed. But all this complicated bit here is literally to set this within inside our structure. Once we've done that, this then becomes a fully populated array. Has the amount of orders that we've set, and each order has been generated and successfully completed. We can then go through them, and we're going to make the order blocks, which we are adding to our main display here, which we'll see in a moment, which makes these order blocks, which gives all the data that we fill in here. and we're adding them on here so that we've got a reference of the ones that are in the game at the moment, so that we can change the colors of the borders, do whatever we like with them. Now finally, we're just setting up the text at the bottom of the screen basically. So we're setting up and updating this here and this here. Okay, so that's what we're doing there with that function. And we are going to look at doing our, oops, wrong place, our next function, which will be which is going to be one of our easiest functions for the day. So we're going to scroll down through here. YouTube, go to UI. End of day, I'm trying to go down the list, and our end of day is simply going to run and generate random orders because we're starting a new day. Okay, so where did we get to? I just pause video there for a second. I need to get a drink. I think we can do a little bit of a test here, but before we do that, we need to get this set monitor widget function from our UI, and we need to get a monitor widget, make sure we set that. And while we're at it, we'll do the get monitor widget as well. The monitor widgets to be on the safe side. And that's going to be our monitor widget there. And go back to our event graph. We might be able to test it. I'm not sure whether we can or not, but we're going to go to our event, begin play. We've got this delay in the chef's comment, so just now disconnect that. And we're going to try with our newly made function, generate random orders. Compile and save. You see our screen is like this at the moment. We hit play. Let's hopefully we should have stuff on there. We do. Okay, we've got 2 orders here. We can't do anything. We've got a bubble in the way and stuff like that, but that's fine. Okay. I find out why we get the bubble, but that's okay. In fact, we'll get rid of that bubble first. Basically, we don't want this to be able to have any interaction from the normal way. We're going to interact with it in a different way. But you can see now we have our monitor buttons here. I might have put that a bit high up. But we can see, but we can't do anything with them at the moment. Okay. But you can see here it says 0 or 2 down the bottom, and it's telling us to select an active order. So far, so good. I'm just going to move that down the wall just a little bit, just to make it a bit easier for us to look at. And let's just go into our BP monitor, make the base mesh. We're going to go down to the collision. We can tell it to ignore the tracer. Okay. And I think the widget, we're going to do custom on the widget. Make sure we ignore the tracer on that as well. Okay. Everything else is fine. Hopefully now, if we quickly run it again, we look at the monitor, we get it on. Get occasionally, but is it doing it in a really odd little part? Okay, it's a little bit odd. Right. Okay, seems to be okay now. Right. Oh, we got loads of loads of here. So access none. Here, children. Probably because this is not white. Well, the monitor is done before. Well, this is done before the monitor. So what you could do here is to make sure, just for testing purposes, so we don't get any of those. Yeah. We could just put that after that 1 second delay. Like so. And that's probably stop those errors. Yeah, let's get that 1 little tweak out of the way. Okay. Okay, now we didn't get anything. Okay. It's just one of those random things, so we need to delete that. So cut it and paste it back later. Okay, I'm going to leave it disconnected for now because I'm going to use it for testing. Right, so where did we get to? So this is going to be a long video. Double checking what we've done. So we're going down through here, we can end the day. Set next delivery stage, it's quite easy. You need to make a function for that. We're going to add this set next delivery stage. Now you may be asking why we want to do this. I'm going to put that in our orders category because in our recipe data assets, it automatically goes ahead and does that as we've had it before. But sometimes you've got to break eggs to make an omelette. So we've had to break the way that works because an order may have more than one recipe. So if that recipe is completed and it's telling you to go and send it for delivery, and then you close the delivery, we're literally sending one item at a time. Not how it works. We want to be able to say, okay, this order has 5 or 6 items. We can send all 6 items in the bag in one go to that one order. It's how it should be. So that's why we have to change this slightly. Okay, so set next delivery stage. Suppose it allowed me. I was just saying, I'm surprised it allowed me to name that the same because I didn't spell it correctly. I'm going to rename that. I'm just going to say save delivery stage and spell it correctly. Okay. So in here we have one input and it's of type prep stage. And we're just going to call that delivery stage. Make sure we are recording. Yes, we are. And inside our delivery stage, it's very, very simple. We are going to find our current stage. We're going to set that to that. Then we're going to say Okay, so it's a function we don't have. So we're going to have to make that. So we're going to have to go to our blueprint function library. In our blueprints, core blueprints, BPFL Crazy Cooking. And we're going to add this one. In fact, what you could do is give stage comments there. You could probably duplicate that and say give delivery comment. And we can just change that a little bit just to make our lives a bit easier. So let's first of all, we can change this. We don't need the recipe. And we don't need a return. So we can get rid of the return on here. We can get rid of both of those. I can clear the whole thing out and start again. Probably going to be easier. Okay, so we're going to get our stage here. We're going to say, is this equal? Make sure it is equal enum. We want two of these. Okay. So is it either equal to add the delivery bag or send for delivery? We're going to do a branch for that. And off the false here, we're going to do another branch for this one. Okay. We're going to add a local variable. I'm just going to call it message. Like, let's get our naming convention right. L message. Ooh. L message. That's our type text. And we are going to set it here, here, and here. And we're basically going to override what we want to do, which is similar to what we had in our delivery, or in our recipe data table. So for the first true, we're going to put in add food containers delivery bag. So if this is add to delivery bag, that stage is going to give that message. Oh. And on this true, we're going to say close delivery bag to send. And on the last one, if it's neither of those, we're going to say choose next order. Then we're going to drag in our add chef's comments. For the world context, we say get world context world content. Okay, explained before. A lot of people don't add that, but I've had weird things happening if we don't add it. We join those to that and our local message. So basically, this is literally, is it this one? Give us this message. If not, it checks is it sent for delivery. If it is, it gives us that message. If it's not that, it gives us that message. You can compile that back to our kitchen manager. And we then just say delivery Did I just call that? Give delivery comment. Give delivery. Sometimes you have to untick the context. Okay, this is a pure function. We don't want it to be a pure function. Let's go back there and change that to a normal function. That's better. That's what we want. Okay, so we're simply going to do that. Nice, neat little function. Okay, that's fine. So then we now need to go to our set next delivery stage here, and we can now drag in set our delivery stage to here. Okay, which will set this. Okay, good. Compile and save that. Next one in our list is check items in bag correct. And this is another relatively complex function. So we've got our items in bag, which is wrong. That should be an array. So let's go to our BPI Kitchen Manager. Our orders, check items in bag correct. Our input actors, it should be an array. Make sure you compile and save that. Compile that. We now have an array. Before each through that, so we have the items in the bag, which is going to be fed in from our bag actor. And we are going to for each loop through all of those, and we're going to find out what's in them. So we're going to say give recipe no, not the right one. Give recipe in container. So look for the container, give recipe in container message. Okay, because that's the one that will be sending the correct recipe. Because as we drop them into the bag, it's looking into the container and it's saying, yes, this is the correct recipe. We can promote this to a local variable. We can call it L items in bag. We're going to delete that because we need that to be an array. Make sure you right click on it. And we are going to just add to that. Okay, so this should give us a type recipe. We will add those into there. So we've gone through everything that's been fed in to say, okay, in all those containers, these are all our ingredients. We've got a list of them. Sorry, recipes. We've got a list of them. So 3 coffees, 1 toast, whatever, 2 different size coffees. It will give us that list. Then we grab our active order. we break it, we get our orders completed, and we do a for each loop through that. We can go ahead and hide those. That can be connected to there. And out of the for each loop, okay, so we need to we're making another array, which is, so what we can do is we're going to look at our local arrays here, we're going to duplicate this and go items in order. So we are basically making two arrays that we're comparing. Okay. So we're going to break this again. And we're going to bring in our items order. We're going to add. We're going to add the recipe. And hiding connected pins. Fine. So these first two have making up this array and this array. We're populating those arrays. Now there is a handy function. If I drag out, I can demonstrate. You can say it's identical. Let's go identical. Okay, which basically compares two different arrays like this. Unfortunately, it doesn't work in our case because it has to be identical in every way. So we have, when you get all items in, or all overlapping items, for example, in a box, and we filter them out in a collision box, they may not be in the order that you necessarily put them in. So that order will not be the same necessarily as the order in our active order. So although they might have the same content, they may be in a different order of names. So therefore they're not identical. So this doesn't work for us. So we have to do it in a more convoluted way. And this is what I came up with to get it to work. So we drag these two in again. And we check the length. We'll get them both and copy and paste that. So basically, if they are the same length, in other words, that gives us our first check. We can say, are these equal? If these are equal, that means at least one thing, we have the same amount of items in there. So however many items there. So say your order had 4 items and the items in the bag were 4 items, this will be true. So we're part way there. Okay. If this is true, so we're going to do a branch. This is going to come off the completed of this one. I know these videos are long, but I am trying to explain how the code works so that you do have an idea of what you're doing. I'm trying to make these tutorials as much of a lesson as possible rather than just copy me and it'll work type of tutorial. Because I often find these copy me, it will work type of tutorials. Yes, they're great if you just literally want to do what they're doing in that tutorial. But if you want to integrate it into your own game, then you have no idea how it works, so you can't change it or alter it or work it out how to do it from that tutorial. So by me telling you how it works, you can always go back and watch the video and I've explained why it works and how it works. So maybe you can change it to work in your own project, or better still, you might find a better way of doing it. If you do find a better way of doing it, or you think you found a better way of doing it, please let me know. I'm always interested to learn. You may have come across something that I don't know. You know, we're not superhuman. Okay, so I've dragged in our items in bag and we're going to for each through that now. So from the true, we've passed that first test. We know we have the same amount of items, but are they the same? So we're doing that, but what we can use so we can get our items in order. We're going to for each through this, and we're going to look in this, so we're going to use find, because they're going to be the same name. Okay, and what we're going to find is this. Okay. Now, as I've said to you before, when we're using find, whether it's in here or whether it's in a map, if it cannot find it, it gives a default value of -1. So we can use that to help us. So we can say, is it greater than, we don't want the equals, just greater than -1. If it is, it means it's found that item. Okay. And we're going to do a branch. So we found the item. If it's true, what we're going to do is we're going to remove it from here so that we're not, because this will kick out the first one it finds. So, for example, if in your order you had 3 large coffees, in here, this will add large coffee, large coffee, large coffee, say for the first 3. Okay. When we find something, it finds the first instance of it, which is great because there's no point carrying on if we've already found it, but it means that it's only going to find the first instance every time, so it's always going to find something. So we need to find a way of saying, okay, we're trying to check it. So you imagine you've got 2 lists in your hand. One you're trying to look for, and one is say an invoice. So you're looking, okay, I should have 1 white coffee, check. Or you scratch it out, I found that. 2 white coffee, check, I found that, you scratch that out. So in a way we're saying, okay, they're no longer there, so they're no longer on that list, and that's what we're basically trying to do here. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our items in order. If we found it, we're going to remove index, not remove item. If you remove item, it will remove, in fact, I will show you. You could remove item, hover over, it says removes all instances of item from array. So because we're using just add, you could have white coffee, white coffee, white coffee. Oh, it's found it. It will take all 3 white coffees off, and we have no idea how many there were, etc. So by removing index, all that does is it takes that index out and moves everything up or down to fill in that gap. And the index is going to come from find here. So we can put that up here. Sorry, I did the wrong one here. So this items in bags should be a for each loop with a break. Just drop those over. 1 connection there, and 1 connection there. Delete that. Okay. Must be for each loop with a break, because if we found it, we're doing something with it, we want to go on to the next one. But we want to go into the next one once we know that this list is now empty, which means we found everything. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our items order again. We're going to get a fresh one because we've changed it here. So we need to get a fresh copy. And we're going to get the length of it. And we're going to say, does this length equal 0? If it's 0, it means this is now an empty list. There's nothing in it. So we've finished our checks. We do a branch. And we're going to break it. So basically we've gone through, okay, our list is now empty. We can finish looking for things in the list, okay? Because these are the same. And in theory, this should actually hit completed before it does that anyway. Okay. Once we've done that, we need to bring our return node down. And we're going to add it to the completed. And we're just going to do this again here. We're just saying, is this now 0? If it is, the item is correct. Now this wouldn't run if these were not the same. So if you've got too many items in the box, it wouldn't run, okay? At the moment, I've not put anything in to be able to remove items from the box. That might be something I'll do later on. But if the item shouldn't be in the box, if it's the wrong type of item, then it should be rejected anyway. So we have that. That's all done for that one. And okay, so now we have another one to do. I'm just going to do a bit of clearing up a minute. I'm going to close all tabs to the right of the event graph. So next one is going to be set recipe completed. We need a function for that, I believe. I don't believe we've got anything on here for that already. Nope. Okay. In fact, due to it being very late here right now and I'm recording this, and also this video has already gone on for an hour and 40 minutes, I'm going to call it here, and I'm going to come back to this when I'm a little less tired, and there will be another part to complete this. But don't worry, I will upload them both the same day, so you can literally carry on from one to another. So once again, thank you for watching, and thank you for sitting through the hour 40 minutes of me dribbling on. If you like what I do, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed, consider joining my Patreon or buying me a coffee, it all helps. If you've got any queries, any problems, join the Discord. I'm happy to help anybody out there as I can. If you've got any comments, stick them below. Any suggestions, stick them below. I'm happy to hear them. If you don't like it, that's fine, but tell me why. But as always, keep them civil. Any rude or derogatory or non-constructive comments will be deleted, so don't even waste your time writing them. See you in the next one. Bye.